Safety has improved greatly on Europe's roads in the past few decades. All 27 countries of the European Union are recording far fewer traffic accidents. In the early 1970s, some 22,000 people lost their lives each year in traffic accidents in Germany alone. But in the year 2010, there were just under 3,700 traffic fatalities. This positive trend is evident throughout Europe. Meanwhile, traffic fatalities due to defects in the vehicle itself have become increasingly rare. This heartening development is due in no small part to thorough testing and quality assurance of all technical components. To further enhance safety, the EU is pushing for standardization of inspection and testing criteria and the regulations that prescribe them. Professor Christian von Glasner is the president of the European Association for Accident Research and Analysis. He has been monitoring the inspection systems for decades and is familiar with the EU's plans.
Das Ziel der Europäischen Union ist die Steigerung der Sicherheit auf unseren Straßen. Dazu wurde bereits viel getan, zum Beispiel Einführung der Gurtpflicht, Airbag, ABS, ESB und, was sehr wichtig ist, die Einführung der Untersuchung der Sicherheit der Fahrzeuge. Die EU plant eine Harmonisierung dieser Richtlinien in allen Ländern und das ist eine große Aufgabe für die EU, denn es müssen 27 unterschiedliche Richtlinien auf einen Nenner gebracht werden.
A worthwhile goal, but also a gargantuan task. While initial EU guidelines for vehicle inspections already exist, the various systems and methods differ in numerous details. Which vehicles must be inspected? Are motorcycles also affected? All two-wheeled vehicles? Is there a special inspection regimen for lorries? Are they subject to other rules? How often must inspections be conducted? Every 2 years? Should older vehicles be inspected annually? Where will the inspection take place? At certified inspection centres, or can they be conducted in repair shops with a mechanic doing the inspecting? What exactly will be inspected? Yes, there are minimum standards, but do all countries test the ABS and ESP systems? Can poor emission values even lead to the vehicle being scrapped? What technology is used to do the testing? Is there a special inspection for shock absorbers like in France, or is a visual inspection sufficient? How are the results of the brake test evaluated? Should every country require the inspection of axle geometry? How long should the inspection take? How much should it cost? How are the technicians trained? What about ongoing education? How are individual defects evaluated and interpreted? Are worn brakes nothing to be concerned about, or a major defect? Are the inspections accepted by the general populace? Just how thorough should standardization be? The EU harmonization effort raises a multitude of questions. Stuttgart in the summer of 2011. Here at DEKRA headquarters, inspection engineers are preparing this VW Golf for an experiment. The question at hand is, how different are Europe's inspection methods really? They are deliberately introducing 10 technical defects to the car. The brake discs and brake pads are worn beyond the acceptable level, and it's impossible to deactivate the passenger airbag. 8 other defects can be found in the vehicle's automotive electronics and mechanical components. The idea is to gain an overview of the scope of each inspection and the respective ways in which different nations evaluate the seriousness of the defects detected.
Mit diesem Fahrzeug wollen wir untersuchen, wie diese Mängel bei der Fahrzeugprüfung in verschiedenen Ländern Europas bewertet werden.
What's being investigated is not just the performance of the individual inspectors, but also a multinational comparison of the prescribed inspection regimen and the way defects are evaluated. The Golf is presented for inspection in 4 countries: Germany, the Czech Republic, Slovakia and France. How will the defects be interpreted? What will be tested? And just how safe are the vehicles on Europe's roads after a main inspection? The first test is in Germany. At the DEKRA subsidiary in Düsseldorf, Inspector Sven Gerdes examines the Golf according to German standards. The engineer evaluates the defects in the vehicle and the results of the integrated emissions test, with clear results.
Das Fahrzeug wurde hier nach den deutschen Kriterien für die Hauptuntersuchung geprüft. Bei dieser Prüfung wurden eine Reihe erheblicher Mängel festgestellt, sodass die Hauptuntersuchung nicht bestanden wäre und somit nach den deutschen Richtlinien auch keine Plakette zugeteilt werden könnte.
A total of 9 defects were found and judged to be significant. One of the defects was the degree of wear to the brake discs, considered a serious defect in Germany. Will that also be the case in the neighbouring Czech Republic? The next stop is the DEKRA Inspection Centre in Prague. Here too, most of the vehicle's defects were judged serious enough to be classified as Category B, significant defects. The defective brake discs were inspected, but not included on the report. The inspector merely mentioned the problem. The car's owner would be allowed to continue driving with the defective brake discs. And that would be dangerous. Intact brake discs ensure short braking distances. If the discs are worn, it can negatively influence the performance of the brakes. And how will the defective brake discs be judged in Slovakia? Here in the DEKRA Centre in Bratislava, the inspector carefully examines each detail and records numerous defects. But just like in the neighbouring Czech Republic, the brakes were not judged to be a significant defect. Even worse, the inspector didn't mention them at all. And the inspectors themselves are not the only Europeans who seem unable to find a consensus. A survey among drivers.
Und wenn die Bremse verschlissen sind, muss sie erneuert werden.
Myslím si, že v opotřebování brzdových desiček není závažná závada.
Ohne funktionierende Bremsen wird man sich natürlich, oder ich mich persönlich jetzt auch nicht ins Auto trauen.
Très important, et je pense qu'il faut donc que le véhicule possède un témoin de contrôle pour pouvoir vérifier cet organe, oui, qui est à mon avis un organe essentiel sur la voiture.
And how will the French categorise the defects? At the DEKRA Inspection Centre near Paris, our Golf is examined according to the French regulations for main inspections. But they say worn brake discs are only a minor defect. They should be replaced, but that's not part of the inspection regimen. Only in Germany were the worn brake discs detected and judged to be a significant defect. In Slovakia, the disc was not judged to be defective. In the Czech Republic, it warranted merely a mention. And in France, the defect is categorized as a minor one. That's surprising. After all, the French seem to place high priority on short braking distances. Defective shock absorbers, like those on our vehicle, can extend the braking distance by up to 20%. That's why France requires an inspection. And France was indeed the only country where our defective shock absorber was detected, unlike Germany, for example, where there was only a visual inspection. The overview reveals that France is the only country in our spot check that requires the shock absorbers to be inspected. And how was the defective airbag switch evaluated? This footage from the crash test centre shows just how important this feature can be. The test car hits the wall at a speed of 40 kilometers an hour. If there had been an infant in the passenger seat, it would likely have suffered serious injuries and barely survived the force of the airbag. But apparently, in most of Europe, this is no reason to check whether the switch is working. And people's opinions on the matter vary greatly.
Myslím si, že by se měl kontrolovat, vzhledem k tomu, že na předním sedačce že jsou umístěny autosedačky pro děti, tak z toho důvodu by to asi mělo být kontrolováno a mělo být odpojitelné.
Das sehe ich jetzt nicht so kritisch, ehrlich gesagt, weil es gibt ja in den meisten Autos doch noch irgendwie mehr Plätze irgendwie für einen Kindersitz als einen Beifahrersitz.
Myslím si, že by to nemuselo být, mohlo by to být jako natvrdo, prostě, jako aby to bylo pořád jakoby zapnutý. Ono je to, myslím, ale kvůli dětským sedačkám.
Pour moi, la déconnexion de l'airbag passager est un contrôle pour moi important.
But the results of the spot check tell a different story. Germany was the only country where the switch was inspected and the defect recorded. None of the other countries checked this component. And the other electronic systems are also neglected on large parts of the continent. But as these images of cornering maneuvers at a speed of about 37 kilometers an hour prove, an intact electronic stability program, known as ESP, is extremely important for road safety. However, in our spot check, the switch that controls the ESP system was inspected only in Germany. There is a surprisingly wide range of views regarding how significant defects are. This was evident now only with regard to brakes, shock absorbers and automotive electronics. For example, a logged error in the OBD system during the emissions test was reason enough for the inspector in Slovakia to interrupt the procedure. Here, the car wouldn't be allowed back on the road. But in France, the same OBD error warranted only a verbal mention by the inspector. Because what's important here is the emission figures. A significant defect is only indicated on the basis of these figures. Remarkable, drivers who report to inspection with tyres that exceed the allowed size can expect to have their car immobilized. If the size of the tyres is not recorded on the vehicle registration certificate, the car is considered unsafe to drive. There's one category that doesn't even exist in France. A defective electrical connection for trailer lights would be of no consequence here because the inspectors don't even check it. That creates a risky situation. If the lights on the trailer don't work, the trailer could become a nearly invisible danger in traffic. In addition to differences in the scope of the inspection and the way defects are evaluated in various countries, other factors also play a role. For example, an inspection of the axle geometry is a required part of the main inspection in the Czech Republic. In France, darkened side windows on the driver and passenger side are acceptable. In Slovakia, the main inspection calls for checking of the brake fluid. And France is the only country that checks the pressure in each of the tyres. Time to sum up. Our tour of Europe was very informative and also held many surprises. Not only with a view toward the planned standardization of vehicle inspection regimens in all 27 EU countries, there are also remarkable differences in areas that should have been standardized long ago. Jörg Ahlgrim, head of accident analysis at DEKRA, examined the findings.
Technische Mängel sind eine relevante Größe im Verkehrsunfallgeschehen. Wir wissen durch unsere Gutachten, dass 10% der Unfälle auf Mängel zurückzuführen sind. Entweder haben sie den Unfall allein verursacht oder sie haben daran mitgewirkt. Hauptgruppen sind die Reifen, sind die Bremsen, sind die Fahrwerke und elektronische Einrichtungen. Genau die Punkte, die in unserem Test, in diesem Test nachgewiesen haben, dass eine sehr unterschiedliche Einstufung der Mängel stattfindet. Wenn man sich überlegt, dass dies nur in 4 Ländern stattgefunden hat und wir das auf die 27 Staaten in Europa hochrechnen, dann können wir uns vorstellen, wie unterschiedlich die Einstufung des technischen Zustandes bei den Fahrzeugen stattfindet.
And that's not all. There are not only differences in the way defects are evaluated, there are also varying specifications with regard to numerous other factors such as inspector qualifications, location of the inspection, cost, results monitoring, and data reporting. Of the 10 defects in our test car, only 4 were detected and reported in all 4 countries, and just 1 defect was assessed equally in all 4 countries, namely the headlamp leveling system. For Professor von Glasner, that is far too few.
Und die Tests zeigen sehr deutlich, dass die Richtlinien der EU unterschiedlich umgesetzt werden und auch unterschiedlich bewertet werden. Das kann nicht sein, dass in einem Lande Fahrzeuge mit ausgefallenen ABS oder kaputten Bremsanlagen weiterfahren dürfen, während sie in einem anderen Land nicht fahren dürfen. Hier ist ganz dringend notwendig, dass eine Harmonisierung stattfindet und wir sind da noch ein ganzes Stück entfernt davon. Da ist noch viel zu tun.
Our experiment also showed that the level of inspection is significantly higher in countries that have diligently and consistently strived to implement the EU guidelines than it is in other countries. For the sake of traffic safety then, Europe should take its cue from the strongest countries, in a studied effort to create top-level standards over the long term. Our spot check revealed one more thing. That this step would be a tremendous challenge for some countries. After all, many countries have failed to implement in any uniform manner regulations that have existed for decades. To ensure safer cars on Europe's roads, powerful standards with demanding minimum requirements are needed. They should combine the strengths of all the member countries while providing a mechanism for the pioneers among the inspectors to further develop inspection regimens in response to the rapid progress being made in automotive design.